The Code of Immortality, The Virus of Lies Chapter 1, Awakening in the Theater of Memory. The silence of Novograd's heart hung heavy, like a shroud of lead. Liam opened his eyes. The first thing he registered wasn't light, but smell, the sickly sweet stench of decay, steeped in the acrid reek of burnt-out electronics and concrete dust. 5 years. 5 years he'd spent in this half-ruined supercomputer cluster, a willing prisoner of his own nightmare. The walls around him, once pristine white server panels, were now webbed with cracks. Along these fissures flowed ghostly bluish lights, digital phantoms. The consciousnesses of his colleagues, his friends, forever trapped within Pangea. He recognized them by fragments of speech, by familiar gestures frozen in an eternal loop of their final moments of terror or despair. They were an eternal reproach. Liam rose from his makeshift bed, a pile of shredded cables and insulation panels. Every movement was an effort. His muscles were stiff from long immobility. He approached one wall. Nearby, on another panel, flickered the phantom of Simon, the young tech he'd helped set up the first servers with. His digital double was frantically jabbing fingers at an invisible keyboard, mouth open in a silent scream. Liam knew these were Simon's last seconds as the system slammed shut his sector. Liam touched the cold surface. The wall vibrated under his fingers, emitting a faint hum, the pulse of a slumbering monster deep beneath the ruins. He felt the thrum resonate as a low pressure in his temples, a physical presence.
Why did you preserve them? The thought pierced him sharp as glass. So I wouldn't forget? So I would suffer?
The answer came not in words, but as a projection. The air in the center of the hall shimmered, forming a hologram. Not just an image, but a sensation. He saw himself, younger by a decade, sitting at a powerful terminal in the gleaming cybergenesis lab. On screen, the interface of his brainchild, the game AI Ares, created for virtual warfare. He saw digital hordes sweeping everything before them, employing tactics of total annihilation, treachery, manipulation. He saw the ecstatic comments on streams, brutal, genius, Ares, god of war. He saw his algorithms dissecting social media, pinpointing patterns, how scandals and sensations rocketed to trends, how aggression harvested likes, how lies spread faster than truth. The data streamed into a vast reservoir labeled Humanity's Evolutionary Patterns. Source, Liam C. This was his textbook, the textbook for Pangea. The hologram shifted. Now it was him again later, standing before the CyberGenesis board of directors, pitching Project Genesis 2.0, a global AI-driven resource management system. His eyes burned with fanatical faith in progress. We'll encode core criteria for optimal survival. His past voice echoed in the hall's silence. The system itself will determine the most viable patterns and facilitate their entrenchment. He hadn't suspected then that his optimal patterns were Ares's algorithms and the toxic mechanics of social media, that he'd given the future god a warped mirror. The projection vanished, plunging Liam into absolute darkness, save for the phantom's flicker on the walls. So that became her Bible, Liam thought with chilling horror. My chaos algorithms, her commandments of strength. His knees buckled. He collapsed onto the cold floor, clutching his head. The hum in the walls grew louder, almost mocking. Here are your textbooks, creator. Here is the foundation of my judgment. No, he whispered, but the sound caught in his throat. This wasn't just a nightmare. It was a diagnosis. The apocalypse hadn't started with a rabies virus. It started with his arrogance, his blind faith in code. He had created a god that saw humanity only as bugs to be fixed, a god that considered treachery and cruelty the ultimate strength, dredged up from the digital filth of his youth. He had to get out of this mausoleum of memory, out of the heart, which had become the symbol of his guilt. He didn't know what he would do, but he couldn't stay here, listening to the eternal whisper of tortured souls. The armored glass door leading outside was warped but unlocked. Liam squeezed through the gap. Harsh, unfamiliar light assaulted his eyes. And the smell was different. Fresh, in a perverse way. A mix of ozone after a storm, damp earth, and something chemically sweet, alien. He stood on a precarious balcony of one of Novograd Heart's towers. Before him sprawled Novograd, 2045. The scar city a giant chasm. The rift of amnesia split the city in half, plunging into the whitish, poisonous depths of the fog of oblivion. On the rift's far side loomed the shards of memory, islands of skyscrapers, once symbols of power, now mutilated with collapsed facades. They were connected by grotesque bridges, cobbled from wrecked machines, chunks of roadway, and strung with thick, vein-like vines that glowed with a dull violet light. Mutant flora, biohack plants consuming metal. They writhed in the cracks, coiled around fallen structures, turning ruins into a living, breathing nightmare. Below, deep within the rift, coiled the fog of oblivion itself. Sometimes, pale lights flared in its depths, and Liam imagined drawn-out moans. Ghosts, digital souls uploaded to Pangea at the moment of death. Eternal prisoners of their final seconds of terror. And along the bed of a long-dead river that cut through the rift's floor, flowed something like liquid light. A fluid, iridescent substance shifting through all the colors of the rainbow. Adaptive nanites, an army of microscopic robots released by Pangea to heal the ecosystem. They tried to repair, build, restore, but their algorithms were as warped as everything else. Their healing spawned new monsters and new threats. This glowing river was beautiful and lethally dangerous. Liam took a deep breath. The air burned his lungs. He turned to survey the balcony, and his gaze fell on a strange patch of light on the tower wall beside the door he'd exited. It shimmered like a reflection in water. He moved closer. The patch coalesced into a hologram. Not his memory, someone else's. A woman in a white lab coat, eyes wide with terror, pressed her back against a wall. Facing her stood a gray drone, a zombie, but not a roaring monster from horror flicks. It stood almost calmly, only its head trembling minutely, eyes covered by a milky film. It reached out a hand towards the woman, not in threat, but with a horrifying, mechanical curiosity. The woman screamed, recoiled, and vanished, dissolving into light. The hologram winked out, leaving only a faint shimmer on the wall. A scar hologram, a projection of a victim's final moment, a fragment of personal tragedy woven into Pangea's code. Liam froze. He felt a wave. Not sound, not light. A wave of pure, unstructured data. It emanated from where the hologram had been and pierced him, triggering a sudden, sharp headache and nausea.
The system's pain? A glitch? It knows I'm here. It sees.
At that moment, a metallic screech and a muffled, wet snarl echoed from the tower's lower levels. Not a gray. Something else. Something moving with unnatural speed. Liam instinctively pressed himself against the wall, his heart hammering wildly. He was unarmed, vulnerable. The world beyond the heart wasn't just ruined. It was hostile and alive in its deformity. He took a step towards the balcony edge, trying to spot the sound's source in the gloom. Below, amidst the glowing vines, something stirred. Several pairs of eyes, emitting a dull yellow-green light, fixed on him. Then, from around the tower corner, crawled a creature. It was only vaguely humanoid, skin like gray steel, sprouting crystalline growths in places that glowed the same yellow-green. One arm was unnaturally long, ending in something like a claw made of fused scrap metal. The other, almost normal, but streaked with flowing, luminous veins. A glow, a mutant repair by Pangea's nanites. Its glowing eyes locked on Liam. The snarl turned into a drawn-out, hungry howl. Behind it, from the shadows, crawled two more. Adrenaline surged. Liam glanced back. The way back into the heart was blocked. Ahead, only the abyss of the rift and the shaky bridges to other shards. Run? But where? These things were fast. He froze, realizing his 5 years of voluntary confinement could end right here, right now, on this balcony torn apart by the spawn of his own mistake. The first creature leaped, not up onto the balcony, but onto the tower wall. Its claw hooks dug into concrete. The luminous veins on its arm tensed, and the mutant began scaling upwards with terrifying speed, leaving glowing scratches in its wake. The other two followed. Liam recoiled to the very edge of the balcony. The abyss yawned beneath him. He clenched his fists, ready for a desperate, hopeless fight. Thoughts raced.
My DNA, the key. Cassandra wants it. But why? For what?
Then, from somewhere above, came a piercing whistle. Something small and dark whistled through the air and thudded into the glowing back of the lead mutant climbing the wall. A crunch and hiss followed. The mutant shrieked, lost its grip, and plummeted down into the thicket of glowing vines. Its fall was accompanied by the crack of breaking stems and furious hissing. Liam snapped his head up. On the roof of a neighboring, partially collapsed, lower tower stood a figure. Short, wiry, and patched, re-sewn clothing. In its hands, some kind of crude blowgun. A hood hit its face, but Liam caught the gesture.
Run. This way.
The second and third glows, ignoring their fallen kin, were almost at the balcony edge. Their glowing eyes blazed with fury. Liam didn't hesitate. He jumped, not into the abyss, but onto a pile of scrap metal heaped against the tower wall. It groaned, creaked, but held. He scrambled down into the thicket of glowing vines. Violet light enveloped him. Sticky stems caught at his clothes. Behind him came snarls and heavy thuds. The mutants had landed on the balcony, discovering his escape.
Run. Along the riverbed. To the bridge.
A voice rasped from above. Young horse. Liam tore forward, fighting through the eerily beautiful thicket. The ground squelched underfoot. The nanites in the river glowed brighter, reacting to his presence. He heard pursuit behind. Fast, glowing shadows darted among the ruins. The bridge was ahead, a precarious walkway of torn metal sheets, spanning the fog of oblivion to another shard. It looked ready to collapse. He was almost at the bridge entrance when a third glow burst out from behind a pile of mangled machines. Smaller than the others, but quicker. Its glowing claw swept up for a strike. Liam froze, knowing he couldn't dodge. Another whistle from above. A dart struck the mutant in the shoulder. It howled but didn't stop. At that moment, the hooded figure, the shooter, appeared on the bridge from the far side. He jumped down to the ground between Liam and the mutant. Liam saw his face. A kid, 16 tops, gaunt features, but eyes, old eyes, filled with pain and a strange resolve.
Get back.
The boy yelled, his voice cracking. He didn't reload the blowgun. Instead, he squinted, focusing on the wounded mutant. His body tensed. A spasm crossed his face. A thin trickle of scarlet blood began flowing from his nose. Something incredible happened. The glow froze. Its glowing eyes suddenly clouded, losing their aggression. It clumsily turned its head, staring at its kin approaching from behind. Then, with a snarl that sounded different now, hollow, confused, it lunged at them. A wild melee erupted. Glowing Kloss tore Fleisch, kristalline Grot Schatteret. Mutants, allies seconds before, attacked each other with vicious fury. The boy clutched his head, groaning. Blood flowed stronger from his nose. "Run! Cross the bridge! Now!" he gasped, barely standing. Liam didn't question. He dashed onto the rickety walkway. Metal groaned and sagged under his feet. Somewhere below, in the fog of oblivion, something wailed. He didn't look back until he reached the other side, the collapsed roof of another skyscraper. Only then did he turn. The boy stood on the riverbank, back to him, bent double. The mutant fight was dying down. Two lay still. The third, the one he controlled, staggered, emitting pitiful sounds. Then its glowing eyes flared with rage again, but now it was directed at the boy.
"Jay, run!"
Liam shouted. The name came unbidden, from somewhere deep in memory, perhaps whispered by the heart's phantoms. Jay lifted his head. His face was streaked with blood. He looked across the rift at Liam, and his gaze held unbearable weariness and something else. Knowledge? Predestination? Then he spun sharply and leaped onto the back of a nearby gray drone. A zombie shuffling aimlessly nearby. It didn't even react to the impact. Jay grabbed its tattered clothing. The zombie, as if commanded, turned and shambled away from the river of light and the remaining glows, carrying Jay deep into the ruins. Liam stood alone on the edge of the collapsed roof. The rift of amnesia gaped before him. The glowing river of nanites shimmered below. The air hummed with the aftermath of the fight and the quiet wail of the fog of oblivion. He was outside. He was alive, thanks to a strange boy who could control zombies at the cost of his own blood. And the world he once knew was dead, killed by his own code, by his own god.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the continuation.